But in 2007, police seized 4,900 firearms across the UK. CO19 alone are taking in hundreds of guns every year.
In these boxes we've got roughly a month's worth of firearms that have been seized off the streets of London. 400 firearms per month. It's an incredible statistic. This is basically a version of an AK-47. You'll empty this magazine in full auto mode in a couple of seconds. 300 to 400 a minute. In a crowded environment, that would be absolutely deadly. This is a 9mm Uzi submachine gun. Again, it's an extremely dangerous firearm. Extremely effective at close range and extremely dangerous. Various pistols here. The whole point of carrying a pistol around is it's light, concealable, and you know, it's got a decent rate of firepower. Got shotguns. They've all been shortened to some degree. You can much more easily conceal this. Very, very powerful, very versatile, very reliable. Extremely dangerous pieces of kit.
None of these weapons were handed in as part of an amnesty.
This is only 1 month's worth. We get this every single month, and this is just the ones that we're seizing. It certainly focuses our minds as to the sort of quantity and quality of firearms that are out and about.
The days where you had the old-fashioned armed robber with the sawn-off shotgun, they tend to have disappeared. You know, they would just pull out the gun for that particular crime, shove it down their trousers or inside their raincoat, go in, do the armed robbery and walk out again. Our people are carrying the guns all the time. You know, they're with them 24 hours a day, so it has to be concealed so that we and the public don't realise they're carrying a gun. Most of the people we deal with use every single type of gun you can imagine, from machine pistols to 38s to 45s to replicas to converted weapons.
It's totally out of control.
This police officer, who feared he'd lose his job for speaking out, asked to remain anonymous. He said for the first time ever, bobbies are carrying firearms, but they're still outgunned by criminals who can buy whatever they want on the black market.
Every officer now in this country gets issued with body armour. When I joined the police service back in the 80s, we didn't have any of this. We had a wooden truncheon and a set of chain link handcuffs. The firearms laws have been tightened up since. Why do we still need this equipment? Simply because the criminals have the weapons and they're prepared to use them.
Gun policy's gone tragically wrong, and police morale at an all-time low.
I feel let down by the politicians, by the senior management in the police. I feel at present I cannot give the public the service they demand and expect.
And as this officer made very clear, it's a law built on a lie.
The politicians, basically, they have misled the public. They said, if we ban handguns, the country's going to be a safer place. They ban the handguns, the country is not a safer place. Why are British people not to be trusted? And I think that says a lot about the government.
Citizens left defenseless, now victims of the very laws passed to protect them.
By far and away the commonest weapons used are handguns.
The majority of the weapons here at the National Ballistics Intelligence Service were once on the streets. Most were recovered in amnesties, some from crime scenes. Martin Parker, the service's lead scientist, says there's been a stark change in the types of guns being used by criminals.
Well, certainly when I started in the mid-80s, sawn-off shotguns was the commonest sort of weapon that we used to see, and I mean these are examples. So you've got weapons, some of which will be over 100 years old, but they still function, so they'll still be used in crime. At the other end of the scale, you've got weapons like the Glock. So it's a modern pistol with a polymer frame. This is the Uzi submachine gun, more modern weapon. It is Israeli design, but again, we've seen examples of this that have been deactivated and then have been reactivated and used in crime.
Lured to their deaths and killed by repeated gunfire.
PC's Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes were gunned down in an attack that also saw grenades thrown.
A bright university student shot dead in an unprovoked attack on the street.
Anuj Bidve was shot at point-blank range with a gun that's still out on the streets.
But Tusha, who's been hit in the chest by a bullet, is left lying on the ground.
Tusha Kamal Swaran was just 5 years old when she was paralysed for life during a robbery. But just how many illegal guns are out there? And where are they coming from?
Well, we have seen an increase in the use of firearms in some areas within Greater Manchester, but that's probably in keeping with a lot of the metropolitan areas up and down the country. You don't need that many firearms incidents to create a spike. And often the spike will be caused as a result of a fallout between two rival groups or gangs.
Gangs are involved in about 50% of the shootings. So we're still seeing the hardcore of people that we're targeting. That hasn't changed a lot. It's still the same types of individuals that we're seizing those guns from.
There's alarm in police ranks over the number of machine guns being uncovered on Perth streets. 3 of the fully automatic weapons have been seized in the past week. No one knows where they're coming from or how many more are out there. Grant Taylor reports.
It's easy to see why police are nervous. They're small, light and easy to conceal, and alarmingly, they're turning up on Perth streets. In the past week, 3 machine guns have been seized during raids in Perth's northern suburbs. Police say the weapons are not professionally made, but either way, they're just as deadly. What police are trying to figure out now is where the guns are coming from. It's not known if they're being smuggled into WA or made locally, and it's also not known how many more are out there.
Machine guns are major firepower that can be really destructive. Having these sort of weapons out in the community is a major concern. 1 gun was seized last night during a raid on a home in Corrine. 2 others were recovered last week by detectives from Clarkson.
Imagine as a police officer coming through a door and being confronted by something like this. Now, the magazine on this one holds 12 rounds. It can unleash the entire clip in less than half a second.
Anyone that's stupid enough to point a gun at a police officer is likely to get shot.
Grant Taylor, 7 News.
Started forming up at the top of the stairs here, and I was about to deploy to take on the crowd which are in this street down here, round about the bottom of the steps, and then you hear the sound of firearms. You can hear crack, crack, crack.
CCTV cameras show a gang of up to 40 hooded and masked men rush down the street. They turn, pause to take aim, then open fire on the police in a deliberate attack.